Hello there, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we're once again looking at the Mirror Universe starships. This time we're going to do a breakdown of the NX class battlecruiser of the Imperial Starfleet Terran Empire, one of the earliest deep space vessels of conquest built by humanity to go forth and subjugate all the dirty Xenos scum that inhabit the Milky Way galaxy and perpetuate a human first culture across the Alpha and Beta quadrants. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe and comment down below for more content. There have been two previous videos similar to this one dedicated to specific vessels of the ISS Enterprise and the ISS Avenger, but this episode is more specific to the starship class rather than individual vessels, its capabilities, size and abilities. With all that said, let's get started. The NX class battlecruiser of the Imperial Starfleet Terran Empire was the first deep space Warp 5 prototype starship developed by the Terrans to help them expand their imperial ambitions beyond the limited sphere of space from which they currently inhabited. This vessel would help them revolutionize the Empire and turn themselves into a galactic power rather than simply a provincial hostile race of thugs and bullies. Like its Prime Universe counterpart, this, as I said, was the first Warp 5 advanced prototype battleship, although its engines were considerably less safe, with it being stated, possibly with some level of hyperbole, that if for every year you spend next to this engine, it knocks 10 years off your life due to radiation exposure. However, this can be taken with a grain of cynicism from the Terran crew. But it is likely that there were safety protocols that not in place aboard the ship that would have been in place aboard its Prime Universe counterpart. The vessel, in total, was 225 meters in length and was constructed of a duratanium hull. Upon its launch, the vessel was equipped with 3 phase cannons, 3 pulse phase cannons, 4 forward torpedo launchers and 2 aft torpedo launchers. The vessel would also be equipped with a myriad of auxiliary weapons that included plasma cannons as well. The vessel carried 2 shuttle pods as standard and also had transporters, as one of the first vessels in Starfleet to carry these as standard. Now, it should also be pointed out that these vessels were not held back like they were in the Prime Universe. The Terrans had considerably more of them. By 2151, they already had a small fleet of this class of starship, which included vessels such as the ISS Enterprise, the ISS Columbia, and the ISS Avenger. Some of these ships would not actually exist in the Prime Universe and would be unique to this one, as the Terran Imperial Starfleet often contained some vessels and forces that the Federation Starfleet did not have at its disposal. As I said, the vessel in its stock form was 225 meters in length. It had a beam of 135.8 meters and a height of 33.3 meters, displacing a mass of 80,000 metric tons across 7 decks. It had a standard maximum warp speed before any future refits of warp 5.2. This was, of course, in its original form. The vessel would later receive refits that would allow it to reach speeds approaching, if not hitting, warp 7. Thanks to the introduction of these vessels, the Imperial Starfleet was able to rapidly expand, if perhaps a little too rapidly, its borders. Based on the registry of the ISS Avenger being the NX-09, that would indicate, if the registry numbers work the same way as in the Prime Universe, that there were at least 9 of this class of ship, probably more. Although it is stated that thanks to the rebellion, Starfleet was not doing so good, and this would have reset the balance a little bit with the Prime Universe, but the Terrans were always prolific starship builders and able to expand much more rapidly, unencumbered by any kind of bureaucracy that exists in Federation universes that may slow down starship production. This means the Terrans basically build a fuckload more ships than the Federation does, and they build them quickly because they're not as worried about standards. As often pointed out, their systems aren't as safe, even mentioned by a future Miles O'Brien in the alternate universe when Sisko asks for auxiliary power. The Terrans don't even have auxiliary power. They don't bother. Everything is all about the primary. It has to work first time and that's it. If it doesn't, they die. Pretty much, you just build a new ship. And that was pretty much how the Terrans worked even in the 22nd century. The Imperial Starfleet, of course, had many other vessels at its disposal, but the NX class was the premier vessel of Starfleet at the time and was used to brutally subjugate multiple species. Although the Vulcans and Andorians had already been conquered before its introduction, multiple other races would fall before it over the successive years after the rebellion was successfully put down and Emperor Sato was installed in power, and the Terrans went on a massive building drive. Despite the fact that early versions of this vessel lacked shields and were only defended by polarized hull plating, the structurally sound design, combined with the polarized hull plating and plucky Terrans being typically good engineers, as Terrans often are, these vessels were still amongst the most powerful ships in the quadrant, and it was within just a few years that the Terrans would begin to introduce such technologies as tractor beams, the agony booth, and shields to their vessels. And there we have the basic breakdown of the NX-class battlecruiser, the fearsome warship that struck terror into the enemies of the Terrans, and sometimes even other Terrans, and helped expand the frontiers of the Terran Empire and humanity's dominance over the Alpha and Beta quadrants in the early 22nd century. Now, if you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me of any other ships that you would like me to break down. As I said, I'm probably going to start going on to some of the personnel breakdowns again from the Mirror Universe, but if there's any particular topic within Star Trek you'd like me to cover, mention in the comments below. I'll try and get to it. And with that said, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you for watching, and bye-bye.